Today's podcast is sponsored by Hearable, the book reading subscription for people who are too lazy to read by themselves or simply too much of a dullard to know how. When you take out a Hearable subscription, a peasant will follow you around as you get on with your business. No, not that sort of business. And they will read a book to you while you work. Hearable offers a wide selection of more than 6 books, including The Half-Life of Cheese by C.J. Cheddar, The Importance of Being Important by Lord Bunting of Lee, Adventures in Crop Rotation by Jess Frimlington, Candles and Their Uses by James Lucerne, Memoirs of a Blanket Weaver by Amelia Textual, the best-selling Tale of Two Mid-Sized Towns by Charles Spiggins, and that's the entire library. Hearable is only 3 groats every full moon.
Hello, and welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am Morrus, aka Russ, or Russ, aka Morrus, and with me is my high-end, low-whiz co-host,
Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Role Players. Russ, as ever, it's a pleasure to be joining you as one of the founding wizards of Pod. Russ, excitingly.
What is it, Peter? What is it?
Well, I have with me a game designer, Russ.
Wow.
I know, someone who actually has this as a job. Who would have thought this could happen? Only us. His name's Ed.
Hi, Ed.
Hello.
Yes. Oh, he's all the way from Kew in London.
Yeah.
I think it's Kew. Is it Chiswick?
Acton.
Acton. Oh. And not as in Acton Cthulhu, but Acton as in the rather large London borough.
I'm afraid so, yes.
That's okay. We'll try not to hold it against you, but I make no promises at this time.
So I this weekend I was at Dragon Meet. I think, were you there as well, Ed?
I was right by the
I assumed
entrance.
you would have been being based in... I didn't see you there, but I assumed you would have been based in London.
Yeah.
You were not there, were you, Peter?
No, I was doing something much more prosaic. I was at a wine tasting.
So, Peter, would you like to introduce Ed to our listeners?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Ed Jowett's done a number of successful Kickstarters and a interesting and varied product range, including Consortium, which has been named as an extremely interesting science fiction game, which is all about time travel. Balan, which is the RPG world's answer to Space Above and Beyond. And then we've also got a superheroes game and a horror game. I believe, Ed, you're just off a 4 or 5 week stint of recording a actual play podcast / radio drama.
That is right. It's I was also doing an actual play, because I'm doing an actual play all the time. And we're also doing a radio drama set in the era of the Consortium universe.
Okay, fantastic. So, for people who are fans of the series.
We'll get on to all that in a bit. Yeah. We've got the news and stuff to do first, but then in a few minutes we'll devote our attention directly on you there, Ed, and talk at length about you and your stuff.
I can do that at length. Ask anyone who's ever walked up to me at a convention.
That's one skill that's useful to have at a convention, I find.
Russ.
Yes, Peter.
Russ, I was wondering, what has caught your eye this week?
Well, because I was at Dragon Meet, lots and lots and lots of things caught my eye. So I have to pick one. So what I went with is one of my only purchases at Dragon Meet, because I was good. I didn't spend too much, although I was tempted to. And I don't know if you can see it. I have it here. So this is the giant book of battle maps.
Oh, wow, that is a giant
massive.
Battle map.
You see
massive.
the size of it. So,
oof,
yeah.
That's what, A3 size?
So what this is... I think so. I'm not sure what A3 is, actually.
Like double A4? Or quadruple A4?
Yeah, it's double A4, yeah.
Yeah.
But then what you do is you open them up, and it's actually double that.
Oh, yes.
So what you basically got, these are all dry arrays, nice shiny dry array stuff, and so you open them up, and you've got some inns, and you've got temples, and you've got city streets, and sewers, and lava fields, and all sorts of stuff like that. Can you see them there?
Yeah, I've actually got something similar. What's the name of the company?
This is...
It looks very familiar.
This was Loki, L-O-K-E, Battle Mats.
I think I've actually got a smaller version.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do an A4 one. I ran into them at UK Games Expo last year. This year. Yeah, this year.
Yeah, they're a UK-based company, and yeah, it's if it's
Yeah,
anything
well,
like what I have.
they kickstarted this earlier this year, apparently, and they've also got a sci-fi one, which I really, really want,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that doesn't come out until March.
No, okay.
But I am totally excited about getting my hands on that thing.
Yes,
But anyway, yeah, so Loki or Loke battle mats look amazing.
Yes, but for the listeners at home, what you're getting is essentially it's a ring binder book which has a picture cut into little grid squares on the middle of it, and they're generally very high quality pictures. And as Russ has mentioned, dry erase, and pretty solid.
62
product.
maps in total, cost me about £30, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Bargain.
Although, unfortunately, they did not have a carrier bag to fit the book, and I had to walk around London with this giant book of battle mats in my hand, which got some really weird looks on the tube and stuff.
Well, fair enough.
Hey.
It was all just jealousy. All just jealousy.
Yeah, that must have been it. That's what those looks were. Pure envy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, what caught your eye this week, Peter?
Well, I saw a very nice review of Wrath and Glory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Definitely looks like it's going to be an interesting game. And it was going into a lot more detail about the mechanics of how they're going to actually implement the system with Wrath, Glory, and Ruin being the final sort of meta currency in the game, because all of those are meta currencies. So, and how they work with the dice pool system. It looks like it's going to be quite an interesting 40k game. They're taking a very different approach from Fantasy Flight, so you will no longer need to do a lot of faffing around to try and fit Space Marines and literally anyone else in the same party, without it just being the Space Marine show plus friends.
And hopefully they're not using those funny dice either.
They're not using those funny dice. That was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Dark Heresy, Space, Death Watch, Only War, all that sort of thing. They used the D100 system, so it's actually using a D6 dice pool system. So yeah.
Oh, I saw the new Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay at Dragon Meet actually up at Cubicle 7's booth. Didn't buy it, but my friend Al, who I was there with, bought a copy of it. It does look pretty amazing.
Well, I've been hearing very good things about it. They're actually playing it in the Monday Gaming Club that I'm going to, and they're having a great time. It's like the casualty rate is horrendous. They're like, well, yeah, we lost another couple of PCs this week. I'm like, well, one of my guys made a death saving throw. He's not done that before.
Hey, so Ed, you were up at Dragon Meet. Did anything catch your eyes particularly?
Actually, yeah, I was approached by World Anvil, who are actually stand right behind us, because we were right at the entrance. So you actually did walk past us, Russ, without noticing.
I'm sure I
us.
did. Yeah, I did pretty much walk around the entire thing. I must have walked past you a dozen times, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, quite possibly. But World Anvil, they are a group who are trying to help people, if I understood right, they're trying to help people sort of build their worlds within their system and bring them to players.
Yeah, I saw them as well, yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't know too much about it. It's on my list to research now that I'm home, because obviously being an exhibitor, you have other things on your mind at the time. But it certainly looked interesting, and I think it's worth a closer look, so I'm gonna have a check.
Yeah, I mean, when they say they help you build a world, what exactly is it that they are offering?
I wish I could tell you, but I'm not entirely sure, because I haven't got around to researching them yet.
As I understood it, and again, I'm kind of like you, I kind of spoke to them a little bit, had a quick look at it, but I kind of need to sort of dive in properly to understand it. So as I understood it, it's basically a tool to help you categorise various aspects of your world. So it's like a campaign manager, but it's a very slick, sort of very pretty campaign manager. So you could have like a sort of database of all the different, I don't know, monsters in your world, or different types of spaceships, or different planets, or different races, or, you know, all this sort of stuff. And you can just create lots and lots of different collections of maps and blog notes and all sorts of different things, just to sort of help you organise the sort of world-building side of gaming, as I understand it.
Yeah, that was broadly what I understood as well. They did mention about being able to sort of have stuff that's... they've even got it set up so that, like, patrons, if you have a Patreon, can see content that no one else can see.
Yeah, that's clever. I might have to look into that. Oh. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I may be mistaken, but was there a virtual tabletop attached as well?
That, I'm going to be honest, I'm really not sure. It wasn't mentioned to me when we spoke about it.
I may be misremembering, but I seem to have this vague recollection of the chap I was talking to mentioning that.
Yeah, well, certainly we'll be able to find out more from the website, and that will be in the show notes for this episode.
Yes, it will. We will put it in those show notes.
Absolutely.
All right then, shall we get on with the news?
Oh, go on then. Let's.
Nothing like a bit of news.
Yeah.
Okay then. So we're going to start with, as we always seem to start with, a bit of D&D news.
Oh yes, yeah.
There's always D&D news, isn't there?
Well, I think Daryl's sent us over a big wad of stuff that isn't D&D news, so we could well have a look at that.
Bits and pieces in there. Well, let's. I've got the D&D one in front of me right now. So the D&D basic rules. You know the free D&D basic rules that you can download as a PDF.
The system reference document and that sort of jazz, yeah?
Yeah, well, it's not the system reference document. It's the actual sort of prettier kind of player-friendly D&D basic rules set you can download.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that, but fair enough.
So they have been updated.
What do they now include?
It's got the most recent errata, which I think we mentioned the errata last week, didn't we?
Yes, that's
but
right.
they're also now in one single PDF. They were in 2 or 3 different PDFs before. And now they actually contain illustrations and art.
Oh, nice. Not bad for a basic.
So it's generally a more user-friendly, prettier, and more up-to-date experience for those people who just want to check out D&D without necessarily buying any books yet, and just giving it a little bit of a whirl.
Right. Okay, so they're persisting in their attempts to make everything as absolutely positively accessible as ever, which, to be fair, is a strong way to go about it and will help them keep their market share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also on the D&D front, you know those people who did that Art and Arcana book?
Is this
the big book of
the coffee table size book of D&D artwork? That one.
Yeah, that one. So they're called 10 Speed Press, and 2 new books by then have just popped up on Amazon.
Ooh.
So these are aimed at kids, 8 to 12 years old. They're hardcover books, 112 pages each. The first one is called Monsters and Creatures, an adventurer's guide. Basically a sort of kid's guide and introduction with illustrations and stuff of all the different monsters that you'll find in D&D. And the other book is called Warriors and Weapons. And this contains all the weapons and adventuring tools and all that sort of stuff with diagrams and pictures and descriptions and all that sort of stuff. All the different stuff you might find in a D&D game.
Interesting stuff.
So aimed at kids, aimed at the younger audience.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. Help people who might not necessarily know their mantlets from their trebuchets exactly what those things are. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's a perfect sort of kid's gift for Christmas or something.
No.
Although I don't think they're out until next year, so you won't be getting them for this Christmas.
Maybe a nice birthday present for the.
Yeah, no, they're popped up on Amazon for pre-order, I think, but they're not out yet.
Yeah, nice present for the geeks in waiting in your life.
Yeah. Sue, what else? What other news?
Have you seen Fantasy Flight Games? The first world source book for Legend of the Five Rings, Emerald Empire.
I have not. Go on, tell me more.
It's listed as shipping now, so it should be in game stores soon. Legend of the Five Rings being the samurai-style fantasy role-playing game, which is very interested and based on social role-play as well as your standard combat.
Yeah, so what's this new source book?
Well, it's apparently the essential setting source book, they're saying, and they're going to have a look.
Is that the Emerald Empire one you're talking about?
That is the Emerald Empire one I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got that up here actually. Yeah, looks pretty gorgeous actually.
I'm looking at some of the art, and it's got some fantastic style. We've got some quite traditional, stylized, very Japanese-looking art, but obviously probably not from actual Japan. And then we've got some lovely overhead shots, which have a real sort of almost watercolor quality to them. And then it varies all the way through. We've got there's a lot of interesting looking artwork, which has regular listeners to the show will know we are complete suckers for. But they're also really digging down into like the nuts and bolts of managing an empire, like reasons why castles are built where they are, major architectural features, routes of villages, essential crops and resources. So it looks like
I've never actually played Legend of the Five Rings. Have you ever played it?
I've played a couple of games. I've never actually managed to play any sort of lengthy campaign.
Yeah.
But I think it's really one of those games where you need to have played it for like several sessions to properly get into it. But
Right.
I found it was quite interesting.
So what would you say? Is it quite a crunchy game, or is it more sort of rules light?
I wouldn't describe it as a rules light game, but I'd say it's like medium average crunch sort of thing.
Yeah.
Quite accessible without being overcomplicated. What about you, Ed? Have you played Legend of the Five Rings?
I've not played Legend of the Five Rings, but I agree with your assessment of the rules because, being a game designer, I often go ahead and read the rule books, even of games that I think I'll probably never actually get around to playing. I mean, I'd agree. It's sort of roughly medium levels of crunch.
And again, it's a very strong theme, which is supported by mechanics, which is, hallmark of a quality game in many respects. Yeah. What else you got up there, Russ?
Let's have a look. We've got some more news here. Some Shadowrun news here. Yeah, some Shadowrun news. We've got a book called Better Than Bad, and it's about playing good characters in a sort of cyberpunk fantasy dystopia of Shadowrun. With rules for hooding, which is basically as in, like Robin Hood, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, and fighting against the power structures that oppress the masses.
Strong choices.
So this is a Shadowrun book, and it's also compatible with Shadowrun Anarchy, which apparently is their rules light narrative system, although I'm not familiar with that one myself.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen Shadowrun Anarchy. What has been quite popular is the Sprawl, which is the Powered by the Apocalypse version. And that seems to be hitting tables quite frequently, as opposed to... Yeah, I haven't seen anyone actually wanting to run Shadowrun, to be fair, which is a shame, as it's like one of those absolutely fantastic settings which really draws people in.
So I've got another bit of news here. Steve Jackson Games. It's good. It's not all D&D this week.
Oh, I'm liking it.
Makes a change, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I can't even say it now. Steve Jackson Games. I reckon. Try say that 3 times really fast.
Steve Jackson Games, Steve Jackson Games, Oh, I can't.
It's harder than you think. Where are we? Anyway, so back in the 80s, of course, Steve Jackson Games produced a whole bunch of things like Car Wars and Ogre and Necromancer, a load of sort of like pocket box games.
Oh, yeah, like Illuminati, which is...
Illuminati was one, as well,
personal favourite of mine. That's a very silly game, and it's immense fun. And Ogre, they did, I think it was about 2-3 years ago now, they did a Kickstarter for that.
They did a big one for that, yeah.
Giant tank versus smaller tanks is my understanding of the situation with that one. But
what they're doing here is they're doing some retro versions of these games. So we're talking Car Wars, Illuminati, Ogre, and Necromancer. And they're going to be near exact reprints of the originals. Even to the extent that you actually have to cut out the counters. So it's not, we're not talking great big flashy modern box sets like I think the Ogre Kickstarter was. We're talking proper retro, nostalgia fueled, this is the game I remember. I actually have I got it up there? Hang on a second.
You've got, I'm guessing, Russ's absence means he's looking for a copy of the game.
I assume so.
Car Wars!
This is my old copy.
Oh, that's your old copy of Car Wars.
Yeah.
Do you have a new copy as well?
No, I mean old copy as in I've had this for a while. That's what I meant. So yeah, I used to play this game at school. Loved it to bits. Because you get this little packet full of little cardboard counters and stuff. You get all the maps. So I'm assuming that this is basically pretty much a reprint of this exact box set. I'm guessing.
Okay, so like a straight up grab for the nostalgia market.
Well, I'm quite a sucker for that stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, anything else in the news? Spot you mentioned something to me over on the old Facebook just before we started, Peter.
Oh yes. Well, it's something that I saw, and Ed was also talking to me about. Ed, about. Well, I don't. The thing is, we don't have like any. This is a news podcast, so I was a bit. I did actually want to chat with you a bit about it. Ed, can we talk about this with no names, no pack drill? There's a certain lady of colour game designer, and some of her books have been reported destroyed.
Yeah, it sounds like the cover was deemed offensive by the warehouse.
Oh, really?
and they went ahead and actually destroyed the books. Now, as Peter quite rightly says, we don't have sort of ironclad definite there. I happen to be a friend on Facebook of this individual, and she did post about it. And I just thought it was interesting around the question of, again, not going into specifics, but around the question of censorship. You know, a warehouse decided that this book had an offensive cover, and destroyed all of the books.
Do we know who the warehouse is?
No, actually, it was asked on the same Facebook thread, and I'm waiting for an answer. I'm watching the Facebook thread myself, waiting for an answer on that, but it's not come up yet.
So, presumably by warehouse, what we're talking is a distributor here.
I assume so.
That's the inference,
yes.
yeah. We've honestly got...
So I'm wondering, I'm just wondering, apart from the sort of ethical side of that, I'm just wondering, just from the sort of practical and logistic side of it, who owns the books at that point when they do that?
That's a very good question.
Presumably,
that is a very good question.
I mean, if they paid for the books with the intention of distributing them, then basically they're destroying their own property.
Exactly, yeah. I think this is an interesting question when you reach this point, because if a distributor were to decide to destroy your books after they paid for them,
that's their money they're throwing away.
Exactly, it's really kind of up to them in a sense. But then you come to the question of, it's very rude, and you come to the question of censorship and whether it's obviously it's up to the distributor. They're a commercial operation. And there's more to commercial operations these days than just, this book might sell or might not sell. There's some questions around morality and stuff, which companies are, fortunately, being increasingly asked to observe. I think it's an interesting situation, and I'm certainly keeping an eye on it for the near future, because obviously this affects potentially any game creator. There's no reason why, in theory, most things couldn't be found offensive by someone.
Well, absolutely. I think part of the thing which has made it, I could be incorrect in this, but quite a lot of the problem was it was about menstruation.
That's correct, yeah.
It's interesting how a distributor can be in possession of these books without knowing what they are in advance.
That is also interesting, isn't it? But it is a supplement to an existing game. Again, leaving names out of it. It is a supplement to an existing game.
There's a chance that they just sort of put an order in automatically without checking it out.
It's possible. And also, this particular publisher, she's fairly well known. She's done supplements for other things before, so it's possible that happened.
Yeah.
Actually, she wrote quite a heartfelt message on Facebook, which actually was picked up on the article which Peter saw. And it was really about, for her, it was really about feeling... sorry, I want to get the phrasing right. I believe she said it was about feeling more empowered about something that leaves her a bit less than empowered. Normally. This was why her decision was what it was. Personally, my opinion is that no matter what the theme is, buy it or not, my understanding is that the issue was actually around the content of the cover rather than the content of the book.
Right, okay.
Which is a second interesting point.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of questions raised, and unfortunately we just do not really have enough answers. We know some things occurred, but the exact details are a problem. If it's still the property of a publisher, because this was, say, a clearinghouse sending it out, then obviously there's going to be a lawsuit involved. If it's a distributor that's bought these books for later resale and they chose to destroy them, that's unfortunate. But it's
as you say, it's rude, but it's their problem.
It sounds like something to follow up on in a week or two once we've got a bit more information, to be honest.
Yeah, because I think this is very fresh news. This was something that only went up
today.
Yesterday? Today?
No, today I think.
Okay, yeah. I think I saw about it last night, but yeah, it's still very early days. So yeah, because I was reading about it last night, so that's how I knew what you were talking about, Ed.
Fair dues.
But yeah, no, it's a hell of a thing, really. Or maybe it's today in America, or I don't know where are they based? Do you know? Oh well, so too much. I
know where the person is based, but I don't know where the warehouse is. So
exactly. So yeah, but yeah, certainly would like to find out more about what's going on with all this. With a bit of luck, we'll be able to find out and update, and hopefully there's been some sort of dreadful misunderstanding rather than someone actually going out and destroying someone's books on the basis of the cover alone.
So we have some better news.
Let's have some better news, yes.
Because that was a bit of a downer, that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Let's have some better news. Do you like free stuff? What's your general opinion on free stuff? For or against free stuff?
Generally for free stuff. It depends what the catch is.
There's no catch. Starter Traveller, as in the classic 1980s. The starter set is currently free at Drive-Thru RPG.
I'm all over that.
So
Nice.
this product, like, periodically is normally you normally have to pay for it over on Drive-Thru RPG, and periodically it appears for free for about a month or so, and then goes back to being paid for again. So you kind of have to jump in there now, grab it for free, or wait until next time. I don't know how long it'll be free for, but this is basically the introductory version of the original dying character generation version of Traveller. Proper 1970s style tech.
It's the only way to play.
It's 3 PDFs. You get a core rulebook, a set of charts, and a book of adventures. And I'll put the link in the show notes. But if you ever wanted to just try, if you'd ever played Traveller before and you wanted to have a quick look at it, try it out and just see what it's all about, now is the perfect time to do it while it's free.
Well, that does seem strong. I'm actually just popped over to Drive-Thru RPG just now because that would, I'd say, would be very relevant to my interests. I've only played the D20 version.
I haven't played that version of it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'd be interested to see what other people do with it. I think we spent about a session in character creation, maybe 2-3 sessions, like pondering around, basically having a spreadsheet on someone's laptop in order to work out the best way to make money on our various trades. And then we got into a fight very briefly, and my character lasted about a round before being destroyed by laser weapons.
Actually, I was going to guess PGMP, but fair.
PGMP?
It stands for Plasma Gun Man Portable.
Oh, Plasma Gun Man Portal, yes.
Yeah.
No, I think they just had lasers. It did not work well for me at all.
I played Traveller in the 80s, which would have presumably been the original Traveller. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I played the Mongoose version. Not the T20 version, but the one that Mongoose brought out a few years ago. That's about it, I think. I think in total I've played Traveller for sort of less than sort of like a dozen sessions in total. Didn't get on very well with the Mongoose version. Can't really remember what it was like in the 80s. That was so long ago.
The 80s was definitely a while back for us, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, it's a while back for everybody.
Yeah, nearly 40 years.
Well,
Okay.
late 80s.
Yeah, sorry. Hate to be down there.
I wasn't actually old enough to play role-playing games in 1980.
Well, I didn't think so, but
How old
I
do you
don't like
think
to
I am?
ask.
Yeah. Okay, I think that is probably it for the news.
Let's just say, Russ, I was surprised you were playing with bits of cardboard rather than slate and chalk. Oh, no, not the face.
Shall we play our favourite game in all the world?
Our favourite game in all the world? Absolutely.
Our favourite game in all the world.
Oh, Ed can play as well.
Ed, are you familiar with our favourite game in all the world?
Is it the favourite game in all the world that I commented on when you first told me about the podcast, Peter?
That's the one.
Yeah, I love that game. Let's do it.
All right, then. It is, in fact, our favourite game in all the world, where I tell you the name of a Kickstarter and you try and guess what that Kickstarter is from just the name. There's 2 of you, so how about you do 2 each? Sound good?
Yeah,
Sure.
sounds amazing. Let's do it.
All right, let's start with you, Peter.
Yeah.
The first one. What is Never Tell Me the Odds?
Well, if it's not a Han Solo-based role-playing game, I will be deeply disappointed. So Never Tell Me the Odds. Immediately, that says to me something either Star Wars, probably not actual Star Wars, but Star Wars adjacent, a game of rogues, like blazing through space lines and getting it to shenanigans and hijinks.
Not bad at all. I'm going to give you 8 out of 10 for that. No, 9 out of 10. That is so close. 9 out of 10. So you are correct. It is a fast-playing sci-fi adventure game. And their example is, think of Han Solo relying on a hyperdrive that keeps shorting out. So, it's spot on there. What's interesting is that when you create your character, you don't assign any numbers to it. You don't have traits or abilities or anything like that. Basically, when you're willing to risk something and you come against a check, the odds are always 50-50. So you can play it with a coin or just a dice or whatever, but it's always 50-50.
Because never tell me the odds. That's brilliant.
It's got a pun in
So it's like a super, super simple mechanic there. Kind of reminds me a bit of Dread with Jenga.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was reading that.
You know, whenever you do something that might be in doubt, you pull out a Jenga block. So this is just you flip a coin. Always 50-50 to see if you succeed or not. I do quite like the idea of that one.
That does sound like a certain amount of shenanigans will ensue.
Yes, I think that's going to be a back for me. I'm going to back that one.
Yeah.
Right, and that is by David Somerville.
Oh, yeah, as well. Sounds like that will be a big hit. So, and what sort of, and when does that Kickstarter end?
That ends on Tuesday, December the 11th.
Fantastic. So,
which is
about a week.
Next week? The week after.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, it's in a week. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so get in and fill your boots. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Now on for Ed.
All right, one for Ed. How about this one? How about After the War?
Oh goodness. That's hard, you see, because to me that says post-apocalypse, sort of Fallout-esque feel with kind of like survival stuff on the back of that. You know, ruined landscapes, etc.
Okay. Not far off. I'll give you a good 7 out of 10 for that. The bit that you didn't get there was it's basically science fiction sort of after a galactic war. So it's sort of the future of Star Wars sort of thing. So you've got millions of survivors and they're trying to rebuild a frontier world called Polvo.
Right. So more John Scalzi than otherwise, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's 240 pages. It's a digest-sized rulebook, 240 pages. I really like digest-sized books. Actually, I'm really fond of those.
I never thought I would, but Savage Worlds Explorer Edition sort of turned me around on that. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
For those of us who actually don't know, what size is a digest book? I mean, it's smaller than A5, right?
Paperback sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's slightly larger than your average paperback. Yeah. It's half an A4.
Oh, A5. Okay.
Yeah. It's a nice size. It's like not, you don't maybe get like the same size pictures and so forth, but it is very portable. And
I mean, Irabalam is one of those.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, I picked that up, and that was I haven't managed to get it to the table yet, but it's only a matter of time.
I think they're coming because obviously, sort of a lot of the Fate stuff is digest sized. I think Pathfinder, Paizo have released a lot of those books in digest sized pocket editions, haven't they?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. You can get quite a lot of the sort of main core rule books for Pathfinder in digest sized books now. I even remember D&D 4th edition came out with a digest sized version. It was called D&D Essentials or something like that. Do you remember that?
You know what? I've only ever saw the players' handbooks for 4th ed.
Yeah, the proper full sized ones.
Yeah, that's right. I never actually saw anything digest sized, but I'm definitely prepared to believe it could have happened. It's like I say, it's a nice size for carrying, and good referencing material as well.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of the giant book of battle maps, which will fit in no bag whatsoever.
No bag may contain it.
When I rule the world, all RPG books will have to be either digest sized or they'll have to be the size of the giant book of battle maps. One of those two things.
Why would you do
Nothing else will
monster?
be allowed. You can have a giant game or a tiny game and nothing in between.
I am against you ruling the world purely on that basis.
Yeah, it's not one of your universally popular policies, Russ. I'll be honest, mate.
Shall we move on?
I think we should, sir. I think we should.
Before I start telling you about all my other policies.
Yeah, go.
I'll tell you one of my other policies in the world. When you have a shop, right? Whatever the name is of your shop, you have to sell that inside. So Apple has to sell apples. I thought of this when I was walking through Southampton and I saw peacocks, and I realised that you couldn't buy peacocks in Peacocks.
Well, no, but it is a fashion store, so...
Yeah, but even so, I think any shop should be named after what it actually sells. So if it's called Peacocks, it has to sell peacocks.
I would again like to object to this policy on the basis that my store is called Shades of Vengeance, and I don't really want to have to sell Shades of Vengeance at my store because, yeah,
It would be quite tricky, really, wouldn't it? Yeah.
well, dangerous actually is the word I would use.
Live a little, Red. Live a little.
Unless Shades of Vengeance was a paint colour.
That's certainly an idea, and we'll take that on board.
I'm trying to think of what...
have no answer to that.
I'm just trying to think of what colour Vengeance would be. I'm thinking kind of a grey...
I'm hoping for red.
A grey-red.
Yeah, well, that sounds unpleasant. Tell you what, Russ, whilst you're thinking about it, why don't you give me another Kickstarter, and I can speculate what the answer could be.
Yeah, let's stop talking about my rules for my New World Order, and let's move on to... Let's move on to your next Kickstarter, which is...
Yes.
What is the word of Stromgarde? And word is spelled W-Y-R-D.
Oh, the weird of Stromgarde. Oh, okay.
Is that how you pronounce that? Okay.
Yeah.
I believe you.
I would say weird, but that's just me. And I would think that would be the magic of Stromgarde. So it would be doing sort of it sounds like a setting book about Stromgarde, and it would have like the stories, legends, and some of the magic surrounding it. So I'm guessing maybe for Pathfinder or 5th Ed, some sort of setting book for that. And Stromgarde being a place, a castle, large, keep-esque.
I'll give you 14 points out of 23 for that. You're halfway there.
Just so there is a spreadsheet, I've been happily informed, which does actually mean that all Russ's values are entirely non-arbitrary and very fairly done.
I believe entirely that this is the case.
The scoring system is highly accurate and highly scientific.
And I hope that at some point in the future, my belief will be rewarded in your New World Order. When I'm the only publisher allowed to produce A4 books.
Ed, for one, welcomes his new Rust-like overlord. Marvellous.
So anyway, the word or weird of Stromgarde is, as you say, a setting book for sort of Norse fantasy and Viking campaigns. It's for Dungeon World.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it comes with 10 character playbooks, 7 compendium classes, monsters, and an entire setting, a ready-made adventure, all that sort of usual sort of setting book stuff.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, does sound pretty good. Sounds all right, that does. One left. Let's go with the final one is, and this one will be for Ed. Let's go with... This is one of those ones that has a word, then a colon. The thing after the colon kind of explains, is kind of a spoiler in the context of this game. So this one is called Become, the game of something.
That's interesting.
Become the game of... I think that this is something to do with... I would go with cyberpunky. I'm thinking like raising like transhumanism kind of thing, like humans not being in their bodies anymore, kind of sort of up above the words.
Go ahead, you can speak. I believe in you.
I reckon this is to do with transhumanism. I reckon it is to do with, sort of becoming more than flesh and blood creatures. That is what I would write with the title Become the Game of. Something.
Not bad. I'll give you 74 points out of 102 for that.
Oh, well done.
Oh, that means I win.
That's not including the 7%.
Oh, even better.
So that's basically 79 points. Wow.
Good times, man. Good times.
I think he's totally won this week, Peter. So this is it's not quite transhuman. It's more AIs. So it's called Become the Game of AI Investigation. But other than that, you're pretty much spot on there. It's the players take on role of artificial intelligences searching out for hidden truths in their simulated city.
Okay. I definitely don't have a game in the works that sort of sounds vaguely similar to that. Definitely not. Nope.
No?
No. Ask anyone. I don't. Definitely not.
frantic typing occurs.
This one, I'm just looking at it. The artwork is lovely. I'm only looking at one piece of artwork at the moment, but it's got some kind of ground vehicle car type thing, like going along a sort of high-tech, shiny future road, or some kind of Skynet-esque plane-based flying robot thing, chasing it and shooting lasers at it. It's absolutely fantastic.
I have to have a look at this now.
That sounds very Transformers. When's that Kickstarter finish?
That ends on Sunday, December the 9th. So if this...
End of this week.
Yeah, if this podcast goes out on Wednesday, that'll be in, 3 or 4 days' time.
Best getting quick. And who's brought out this exciting new artificial intelligence game?
Dylan Grinder.
Dylan Grinder. Well,
Yeah.
okay.
So the Kickstarter hasn't actually funded yet. It's got a $4,500 goal.
Needs about another
It's
1,000.
done $3,408 so far, with 6 days to go. So it's going to be a close one. I think, given the usual sort of uptick towards the end of a Kickstarter, it'll probably do it. But it's going to be fairly close, it looks like.
Having run a number of Kickstarters that is over 40, I can tell you that the last 48 hours is utterly transformative, and I would say, in my general experience, they'll make it.
I think it will, yeah. But I've had a couple where the uptick was really, really small, and I've had a couple where the uptick was quite noticeable. So it isn't a 100% rule.
There's a lot of people
but generally speaking,
yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, you can get a massive, because it's that 48-hour email that Kickstarter itself sends out. Really helps. Plus, there's a whole psychology thing going on with people who wait and then get in at the last minute.
Try and slap those bargains at the last second.
Exactly. Well, I think that's it for our favourite game in all the world. I think we can definitely declare Ed to be the winner by about 60-odd points.
Bravo.
See, I still assumed it was a fraction, you see, and I still won, even if it was just a fraction, so...
Ed's prize is that he is allowed to continue producing books in A4 format.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
In the forthcoming New World Order.
In the forthcoming New World Order, yes.
But I still have to sell Shades of Vengeance in my store.
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Last week, as you may recall, we held a little competition where we asked our listeners to send in a sketch for us to perform. And we said that if you sent in a sketch, we would, assuming we liked it, perform it on the podcast for you. So this week, we are going to be performing a sketch by Tyler McConnell, who has written into the podcast before. He accompanies it with a quick email. Hi Morrus, hi Peter. Here's my sketch. Let me know what you think. I'm also prepping a review of the monster cars you mentioned in yesterday's episode. That'll be last week's, presumably. Spoiler alert, I love them. Anyway, hope you enjoy it.
Tyler, thank you so much for writing this. I hope it's as much fun to listen to as it is to read. Thank you for calling the Adventurers Hotline. How may I help you today?
Yes, I'm worried we may have stepped into a very strange alternate dimension.
What do you mean? Have you encountered a portal or perhaps an Archmage cast banishment on you?
No, we're still in town, but it's weird. Everybody was very nice and normal for a while. Jargon, Born Anvil, the Dwarven Blacksmith, McGrundon, Acumber Riliax, the Dragonborn Mayor, Decarabia, the shifty-eyed tiefling at the bar. But the more we talked to people, the odder they became.
The odder they became? Perhaps demonic possession?
Oh, nothing so malicious, just people with strange names and traits, like Steve with long hair, and Jack, who keeps juggling things, and Patricia, who has an absurd amount of pockets.
Have you met anyone named Kyle? Perhaps a Susan?
Yes, both. Kyle is well known for his soup recipe, and Susan sings everything she says.
I see. You've stayed in town too long and your DM hasn't prepped enough NPCs. The poor soul is trying their best to improvise some interesting individuals. Talk to McGrundon or Decarabia. They likely have a mission for you, and once you leave town, everything will seem much better normal in no time.
Oh, thanks so much. We've been here for a month. I could certainly use an excuse to stretch my legs.
Yes. Moving the plot along can be wonderful exercise. Thank you for calling the Adventurers Helpline. Don't forget to complete the survey after the call.
So thank you so much to Tyler McConnell for sending in that sketch. If you have a sketch or you want to write us a sketch, please do send it in, and we will try and perform it for you on our podcast as best we can.
We make no promises about the quality of our performances.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll certainly give it our best.
But we will do our best. In the meantime, please head on over to our Patreon and support this podcast, because we can't do it without your generous support. You only have to give us $1 a month or something, and that will help keep us going. And also, that does mean you get access to our bonus deleted content every week, which usually contains up to half an hour of extra material.
And certainly, if you'd like to be part of the Wizards of Pod and see Russ's new world order taking proper shape in the world, then your contribution really does matter.
Absolutely. You can find that over at patreon.com/Morrus. And if you want to enter the competition and send us in a sketch, you can do that by sending us an email to morruspodcast@gmail.com. Shall we move on, and should we talk about Ed a bit now, shall we?
Oh, must we?
My favourite subject.
Well, we don't have to, but I mean...
Well, he's just been banging on the whole podcast. It's like, no, I'm sorry, Ed, don't mind me. I was mentioning that you are a very hardworking games designer, and you have a lot of games out there. I mean, you know what? I honestly don't know where to start describing your product line. It all falls under the Era, and is that your rule system?
The rule system is called Era D10.
Era D10.
They don't all fall under Era. That's where things get a little bit complicated.
Okay.
So, I initially started by creating one game.
Yes.
And Era is actually the name of the universe, because all of these games live in a shared universe.
Okay.
Exactly how they link up is a little more complicated, but Era D10 also happens to be the name of the rule set.
Fair enough then.
So I started with one game initially, and that was Era the Consortium, which, interestingly enough, actually is approaching its 5th anniversary in February.
Nice.
So I've got some awesome stuff planned for that, and I'll talk about it later. I then started working with a couple of other creators. Era the Consortium was a very transformative experience for me creatively. It was extremely difficult to actually get the game produced. I was let down by a lot of people. I lost quite a lot of money.
Wow, okay.
Oh, yeah. That's unfortunate.
Just during the development of it. And I decided that instead of allowing other games, which, there are great games out there, I mean, we've talked about several just today, instead of allowing other small indie creators to have the same kinds of problems as I did, I would offer to lend a hand with developing their game, finding them artists who I know are reliable, finding them writers or editors, or doing editing myself, or whatever it was they needed, helping them achieve that.
Oh, okay. Very public inspiration of you.
Yeah.
Well, I thought so.
I think, unreliable freelancers can be a real problem.
I think I definitely think that freelancers get screwed over by people as well, but I think that particularly in tabletop gaming, where sort of the images are about 80% of your total budget when you're a creator, unreliable freelancers are disastrous.
Sure.
Very, very nearly killed my project 2 or 3 times. So I worked with a few people. They had their own games, they had their own rule sets, and we worked together to create the games in the form that they wanted. So I worked with a gentleman who was very big fan of 1950s sci-fi.
Right.
And we created a game called Amazing Space Adventures, which was all about... Well, he created it and I helped to develop it, I suppose would be a more accurate way of saying it.
We're talking like Flash Gordon-y type stuff here.
Yeah. Venus is covered in jungles, and Mars has ruins of an ancient civilization. Kind of all the way the 50s sci-fi writers thought the solar system was.
Yeah. So sort of like an Edgar Rice Burroughs sort of take on it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And with Asimov-esque robots and so on.
Positronic brains, all that sort. Positronic
all of it.
brains, all that sort.
The whole
lot.
lot.
Nice. Okay, yeah.
So we did all that, and we produced Amazing Space Adventures, and then I worked with another gentleman who had been working on a game called Order of the Link for 30 years and had never figured out how to publish it.
Right.
He'd been giving it away for free, and he and I worked on it, and sort of I showed him the way to do it. And since that project, which was very, very successful, it brought in over $3,000 on Kickstarter. He's actually gone ahead and produced a full sort of an extended rulebook. since that time. And then I worked with a third individual. He wanted to create a Fate game, which was about sort of assassins, called Marked for Death.
Yeah.
And I worked with him on that. And that was kind of the going on alongside me making my own stuff. So obviously, Era the Consortium was where it all started. I moved on to Era Lyres, which is a game that's achieved wildly different reactions depending on who you talk to. People either love it or hate it. It's very much a Marmite. The idea is of Era Lyres, you see, that you aren't an adventurer, because adventuring is dangerous and you don't want to lose your limbs.
Seems strong. Yeah.
So instead, you tell your story to a tavern full of people who will shower you with golden glory if you are successful. It's sort of like a Team Munchausen.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Or Team Braggart.
Yeah.
Where you work together as the players to tell the story to the GM. And I ran a fantastically successful session, actually it was a campaign, but all within a 4-hour thing, at Contingency last year. This year, it's still this year. In January.
So it was
feels like ages ago.
in January earlier this year, yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. Actually, little surprise coming up. You guys are the first to hear it. Here's your news from the Eraverse.
Oh, yeah.
Era Lyres is going to have a definitive edition, which comes out in January on Kickstarter.
Wow.
And it's going to be a limited print run of 100 copies.
Only 100?
Only 100, that's it. I'm only doing 100 of these definitive edition rulebooks, and then after that you'll be able to get hold of, still, of course, the standard rulebook that already exists.
Yeah.
But I thought a special limited edition print run for those people who are still around after, it's actually 4 years since I first put that one out.
Yeah.
Was a nice thing to do.
So what does the limited edition book look like? What makes it stand out from the original?
So what it's got some extra world building content.
Yeah.
So the book itself is kind of hilarious. As you can imagine, given that the world is built on people not knowing what's actually beyond the bounds of the city, stories such as that of Cyclopses, or Cyclopes, I should say, really. They aren't brutal or evil creatures, they're just very, very private. So the reason that they swallow both humans and cows is because they don't want anyone to know that they exist.
Right.
And, those who know they exist, they want the minimum told possible. So they swallow humans and take them back to their secret place and then kind of regurgitate them and allow them to live out their lives as much as is possible after that traumatic event. The reason they swallow cows is they don't realise that humans don't speak cow, and they know how talkative cows are.
Right, okay.
The bestiary is packed with things like this, little tidbits about the world. We've also got a whole thing about, the various cities in the world. Again, written by a man who's never left the central city, Yarnolf. But it's from all the stories and the ones that he deems accurate.
Right, yeah.
Because he's the leading professor of kind of the creatures in this world. And he's like, oh yes, this is a valid story. Oh, and this contradicts, so I don't believe this. This guy's making things up.
Yeah.
So you get to put in some hilarious little bits and pieces in there. So this one's going to have some extended bestiary entries. It's going to have the entire Traveller's Guide to Yarnolf in it. It's going to have modifications to the rules because there's an alternate method of character creation which actually has proven really, really effective since the game originally launched. And I want to include that in the book, so you have both as an option.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's going to include some more equipment. It's going, it's sort of like I'm just fleshing out some stuff because it's a fairly light setting. It's medieval and you can make up what you like, and that's kind of the essence of the game, as I'm sure you can imagine. So there's a limit to what I want to prescribe.
Yes, yeah.
But I think that giving people ideas with the book is still a very, very sort of strong and powerful thing to do.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you've used your Era D10 system to do quite a lot of different options. Balan, Chosen, Silence.
Yeah. Empowered.
Empowered, yes, that's the superhero one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Consortium, of course.
Yes.
See, the rule set runs on a sort of a consistent basis. It's a dice pool system, D10s. It runs on an attribute and skill basis. But what I do is I add modular rules for each game that bring the flavour. You were talking earlier about, I think it was Legend of the Five Rings, I want to say.
Yes, that's right.
About how, the rules supporting the setting is really, really important to a good game. I 100% agree. Very, very important. And I bring rules into each one of the games that are unique to that setting that can then be removed or kept for the next game. In fact, I even went a little bit crazy once, and I actually created an expansion for Era the Consortium that was combining many of the rules from Era Survival, our survival horror game, to make a sort of a Dead Space or Aliens-themed module.
Okay.
Because the thing is that all of these different games can actually have the rules put into each other.
Yeah.
And it still balances when you do.
Right,
Yeah.
so they're all completely 100% compatible with each other then?
Pretty well, yeah. There are a few differences. For example, weapons in Era Survival are slightly less basic lethal than they are in Era the Consortium, because in Era the Consortium you're more likely to have armor. Right,
yeah.
So there are tweaks for individual games, but yeah, if you were to bring Era Survival rules into Era the Consortium, you can do that. And if you were to bring Era the Consortium rules into Era Survival, you would have a different experience.
Could you sort of, just for like the listeners, could you just sort of sum up maybe 2 or 3 of the different Era sort of settings that or games that you've done, just to, maybe 3 different ones, just so people can get an idea of what it is we're talking about here?
Sure, absolutely. So, Era the Consortium is a science fiction role-playing game that is intended to give you the opportunity to play literally any subgenre of sci-fi.
Okay.
You can do colonization, you can do exploration and space opera, you can do all-out war, sort of Starship Troopers style, you can do transhumanism and cyberpunk stuff, you can do high-tech dungeon crawls, you can do Star Wars-esque, the Resistance fighting against the sort of evil government. And you can do all of these things by picking where in the 500-year history you want to play.
Okay.
Now, the idea behind this was really that I love sci-fi, and I have done all my life. And whenever I want to play a sci-fi role-playing game, I come up to the problem of, okay, well, this campaign's going to be a space opera, and then my next campaign's going to be, more of a political thing. And most rule sets handle one very well and the others not so well because they have a core sort of theme for the game.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And I find that that's sort of a shame. Because I don't really want to go out and buy another game just so I can do something. Really, I'm happy enough with the setting, but I want to do a different style of game. And the rule set just doesn't support it. I was really, really sad because I had this problem with Eclipse Phase, which as a setting, I think it's phenomenal. I love it. And then, I wanted to do certain other things that really just weren't supported very well by the Eclipse Phase rules.
No.
So what I decided to do was to make my own game that would deliver all of these things. And that's really where Era the Consortium came from. It's worked really, really well. As I said, I've done expansions for it. There are some extra bits and pieces that didn't quite fit in the rulebook. So there's stuff like psionics, that's one of the expansions, or kind of a James Bond in space thing. And each of these will add some sort of additional rules or some rules tweaks for when a character is in that specific situation that can be entirely discluded or can be included if you have a character in that situation.
Sure.
And they're all balanced to make it work. So that's Era the Consortium.
Certainly a broad design brief that you gave yourself there.
It was actually very specific. It was make a sci-fi game that lets you play any subgenre.
Yeah.
So I very specifically had something in mind that I wanted to deliver. So it wasn't quite as bad as it might sound.
So you've got a Patreon as well supporting this line, I see.
I do. There are a few things actually on Patreon. First of all, and I wanna mention this, and please, if you're listening, go and check it out. It's free. On our Patreon, you just have to go in and look for the posts. It's called Encounters on the Edge of Space. And the reason I mention it, and the reason it's free, is when I look at online materials, I see so many fantasy bestiaries, and I see no sci-fi bestiaries.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I can absolutely empathise with that particular,
I mean, being a sci-fi fan, I think that's tragic.
Absolutely.
I definitely wanted to do something about that. So what I did is I sat down with a PhD in microbiology, really, really nice guy. And we came up with a huge number of sort of ideas of things you might encounter. Some of them are very obvious what they are, a little like the Never Tell Me the Odds thing. We have a guy called The Wanderer, who has ridiculous amounts of technology and just sort of pops up in random places and, in inverted commas, fixes problems before disappearing again. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we are still British and we are still sci-fi lovers, so, you know, that stuff is all there. There's loads of sort of original Star Trek references as well, you know, bits and pieces all over the place.
Yeah.
There's also some really, really sort of in-depth, well-thought-out microbiology stuff, diseases and such, you know, they're the kinds of things that, you know, obviously a microbiologist would come up with. And all of these are free. We release one a month, every single month. I want to say that so far we're about 16 or 17 in. So I write them, because we've got them all written, I kind of edit them a little in advance.
Yeah.
And as of this month, we're on number 17. So last month was 16. It comes out at the end of the month. So not a bad guess.
Just jumping back to something you just said a minute ago, when you were saying about all these fantasy bistries and sci-fi bistries, and as I said, I've noticed that before, and I've sort of got my own sort of opinions on why that is. Just wondering why you think that is. Why are there so many fantasy ones and so few sci-fi ones?
I think that people who make bestiaries tend to be more focused on the games with a larger market. And frankly, that is the industry that we live in. You know, D&D, Pathfinder, between them, control so much of the market that I think a lot of people want to make their stuff so that it is compatible with that, so that more people will read it.
Sure.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, you know, fits very well in Era of the Consortium, of course, as you would expect. But it's all setting neutral, really. It would fit in Star Trek, it would fit in Star Wars, it would fit in Warhammer 40k. You can use these things. They offer you details about the creature of the week. They offer you some information about the creature's motivation. And then they offer you some adventure seeds, some ideas, you know, that are really, really very general terms that you can very easily pick up and run an adventure based off. So I would strongly encourage anyone looking for that. It's totally free on our Patreon.
Is there any plan to, sort of long-term plan to compile them into a book, perhaps?
There actually is, and it's going to happen next October.
Excellent.
But I'll be honest, when I do that, they'll probably be slightly more Consortium-focused.
Sure, okay.
Because I was planning to release them as an Era of the Consortium expansion, because they'll all fit in Era of the Consortium, but equally, anyone with any GM who's ever run a game is going to be able to pick them up and go, oh yeah, well I can just strip out that bit and I'm good.
Yeah, and just convert them on the fly to the system of their choice.
Absolutely.
Okay. Unless their system is Pathfinder. In which case it might take a bit longer.
If it's Starfinder, then it's fine, right?
Yeah, true.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, that sounds pretty good. Another thing I noticed is you have a lot of comic strips associated with your games, and you've also been doing sort of a radio drama.
Yeah.
It's like sort of this like creative sort of co-production
Nexus
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Nexus, yes.
It's a creative nexus is what it is. One of the guys I work with, Jonathan Lewis, he's been working with me since sort of pretty early on in the Era of the Consortium project.
Yeah.
He also wrote Revival with me, the Era Survival meets Era of the Consortium module that I mentioned, the Dead Space one.
Yes.
He and I sat down together and we started writing comics, because comics are his thing. So, you know, what I do is I go, okay, well, let's tell this story. This is a thing that I wasn't able to do in the rulebook that I think's a really cool story. Let's do it. As our universe has grown, obviously the superhero universe came out. We also started writing comics in the superhero universe. The opportunities there are obvious and vast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So with this radio drama, it's not just yourself. It's a whole pile of people who are all really into Era of the Consortium.
That's right. I worked with Leo and one other person to write the script. We bounced the script off a couple of our normal regular writers just to make sure that it looked good to them. We then sort of proceeded to go ahead and record, and we had loads of volunteers. You know, it's become a full cast audio drama. It's not a huge cast, but you know, it's 6 people. You know, who are on it, and it mainly centers around one character, which I was persuaded to play against my better judgment, if I'm totally honest. But I was persuaded, so I agreed. And you know, it's really around the one character. We've not revealed who the character is yet, so I can't tell you.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic fun. We've just wrapped up about 90% of the recording. We've got one more session to do, and then we're done. We've recorded everything.
Cool.
Right.
So,
what's the name of the radio drama?
A Titan's Rise.
Right.
A Titan's Rise.
And
Is
anyone
that
who
gonna
knows
be-
Era of the Consortium already will know that there is.
Is that going to be available as a podcast then, or
We are not entirely decided how we're going to release this one. It may be available as a podcast. It may be available more as like an audiobook.
Yeah.
We're sort of still researching and debating the options.
Okay.
But you've got it recorded, and it's just like how you distribute it. That's the question that you've got to ask yourselves.
Exactly. And in the meantime, while we're asking ourselves that question, making a decision, we've got loads and loads of editing to do because we got it's going to be sort of 4, 5, 6 hours long. So it's quite chunky, quite significant.
Yeah, nice. Basically, that's a decent sized novella in audiobook terms. Absolutely. No, that sounds very exciting, Ed.
I am really looking forward to it.
What else have you got on the horizon there, Ed? Anything you can tell us?
Oh, yeah, no, a few things. Era of the Consortium, I mentioned, has its 5th anniversary in February.
Okay.
And we've got quite a few things sort of laid on for that. First of all, we're going to be doing miniatures for the first time, which is really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had those on display. We had them at Dragon Meet, and we had them also at MCM. We are tremendously looking forward to that. We've worked with some incredibly talented people who've brought sort of characters from Era of the Consortium to life in a way that I never expected to be possible, to be honest.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just absolutely fantastic stuff. So we're going to be offering those miniatures on the Kickstarter.
Wow.
We're also going to be offering some unique 5th anniversary editions, which are going to have slightly different content to the definitive edition.
Okay.
Because the 420-page definitive edition rulebook already exists.
Yes.
I did that a year or two back. There's also going to be, obviously, the audio dramas, which are celebrating the 5th anniversary. There's a second audio drama as well, which is it's called Radio Free Tyrannus. And that one...
So how many Kickstarters have you done now? You've done a few.
Give me a moment, and I will give you an exact number.
Yeah, you said over 40.
It's over 40.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Kickstarters.
It's a few.
To be honest, I'm not sure I've ever met anyone who's done quite that many Kickstarters before.
Okay, sorry.
It's all good. I mean, what do you know off the top of your head what your best funded one was?
Yeah, I do. It was Era of the Consortium, a Universe of Expansions. It was the first expansions Kickstarter. It's also one that produced the definitive edition rulebook that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was my best funded Kickstarter.
How well did that one do?
So that was just shy, including the PayPal. That was just shy of $10,000.
Nice, very nice indeed.
Yeah.
Good work there.
So I've done 26 on my kind of Shades of Vengeance account. I've done... Sorry, I'm now looking on the comics, because that's a separate Kickstarter account. I've done 10 there.
Yep.
And I think I might have... Oh, no, I haven't. No, I have done 41 Kickstarters then.
Wow.
Because I've done a few bits and pieces that were on other people's accounts, such as Mocked for Death or Order of the Link that I mentioned earlier. They were actually on other accounts for those individuals.
I'm wondering if that's actually a record.
It's not. The record on Kickstarter is over 100.
Really? Who did that?
It's someone who started right at the beginning of when Kickstarter began. And they've kind of made sort of art bowls every month.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So not huge amounts of... Not huge amounts of money, but okay. I mean,
Not
40
huge amounts
Kickstarters is
It's
respectable.
probably a tabletop RPG record, at least. Must be.
I honestly don't know. I should actually ask Luke at some point. Luke Crane is the head of games at Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I should probably ask him at some point, because he would definitely know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, out of those 41 Kickstarters, I've produced 64 products, and that is all within the last 5 years.
Yes.
I don't think I could take the stress. I find Kickstarters really, really stressful to run. And the thought of doing 40 of them, oh my god, that gives me a headache just thinking about it.
Kind of as you said, once you get past about 20...
you just become immune to it. Yeah.
You just become a bit of... Oh, well, I've done it 20 times.
I guess, yeah.
It's
I suppose it's
terrible,
like anything, isn't it? You get used to anything, don't you? So
repeated exposure.
Yeah, you do. You get used to it after a while. You get used to the kinds of things that you do. You know, I always go on and I very, very frequently talk to Richard from We're Not Wizards about my Kickstarters. I think I am actually, I believe I hold the record of his single most frequent guest with about 7 appearances. You sort of get into a routine. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you kind of get used to it, and it has its risks and it has its worries, but like anything in life, it's just a question of understanding that and going with the flow.
Yeah. And for me, it's not so much about understanding it, it's just how I feel during them, rather than... Even though I intellectually know exactly what's going to happen, I know what the patterns are, I know what to expect, what not to expect. Even so, you still have that sort of roller coaster of emotions as you go through a Kickstarter.
I do still, I'll be honest, I do still get very, very upset when people sort of back out of my Kickstarters for no reason.
I make sure I've got all the notifications turned off so I don't get those emails. That is not the sort of email you want to get while you're walking your dog, or, you know.
I mean, it's surprising, you know. I actually got told once, and this is my favourite excuse ever. It was on my $1 or £1 Kickstarter for Era Lyres.
Yeah.
For Era Lyres Pocket. Era Lyres Pocket Edition, I gave the digital away for £1.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I got told it was too expensive. And I literally said, dude, you're getting a full-on role-playing game, 26 pages, digital format for £1. Yeah. I'm sorry it's too expensive, but this might be the wrong hobby for you.
Yeah.
That's another 60 people buy you a cup of coffee. Yeah.
Well, then, you know, people back out of Kickstarters for all sorts of different reasons. Their financial situations change. Other Kickstarters come up which they're more interested in. Yep. Sometimes they only back you early on just because they just want to keep track of it and they haven't decided. I mean, I think it's easy to intellectually know all that, though. You still feel it each time they cancel, though, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You feel like that person just doesn't want your project to succeed anymore.
Yeah. And you know that's not true, but it's...
Yeah, of course you do, but it feels that way, and you're dead right there. It can be a roller coaster, but as we said a few minutes ago, as with anything, you get used to it. Over time, you get used to it.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever get used to it, to be honest. I approach every Kickstarter with a mix of excitement and dread.
Run 40 Kickstarters, come back and talk to me.
I don't want to run 40 Kickstarters. I don't think I'm going to run 40 Kickstarters. At least I hope I'm not.
That's a lot of Kickstarters.
I don't think there'll be anything left of me after 40 Kickstarters.
You never know.
I'd be this emotional gibbering wreck in the corner.
Yeah.
I'm that anyway, it doesn't make any difference.
Okay. So
I suppose it helps if you start from that position, I guess. Yeah.
Stress and paranoia and
just a
general
shortcut
twitching
straight to the end.
That Kickstarter's not really doing anything. It's like
there you go,
forest fire. Yeah, that's nice. It's a good way to be. Yeah. So you don't, with all this like innate creative stuff that you've been doing and working with other people, you don't really do any work with the IP market, do you?
I've done a little.
Oh yeah.
I picked up a request from Richard Tung, who writes the absolutely fantastic Battlecruiser Alamo novel series. And we had a conversation, and we decided that actually we'd go ahead and develop a game. And I came up with a fairly unique mechanical sort of trait for this game because in his universe, the sort of the foot soldiers, Espatiers, Space Marines.
Yes.
They have a very high mortality rate. Like in the first 3 books, I want to say about 40 or 50 of them die on screen, as it were, in the book.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, no, the mortality rate's ridiculous. So what I did
they
is
all
I
have
came
red
up
shirts
with
or something. That seems like a poor choice of uniform, if you ask me.
I'm not sure if they actually wear red shirts, but they do die a lot.
Right.
But they die a lot. I sort of came up with this idea of everyone having a dual character. So there's kind of there's an officer, because in his universe, the officers mostly stay on the ship and deal with the ship. And then everyone also has an Espatier, because they mostly go down to the planet. So that lets you really build the pressure up on the players, because not only are their officers in trouble in space, the Espatiers are also in trouble on the surface. But it's a lot less likely the officers are going to die than the Espatiers. So, when the Espatier dies, you can just switch that out and pull in another Espatier as your secondary character. Whereas the primary character kind of is still the officer, but that gives you that ability to kind of have the paranoia-esque churn.
Of the very high mortality rate.
Yeah.
And the sort of, okay.
Actually, I'll be honest, Espatier's kind of make my paranoia characters look fairly...
Long-lived.
Long-lived.
Yeah, it's been really good having you on, Ed.
Thank you so much for coming on, Ed. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah. Maybe I'll be able to come back sometime. Assuming I haven't burned all of my bridges.
Absolutely. Anytime. Well, I think that's it for this week. Thank you, everyone, as always, so much for listening. Thank you to our guest. So it's goodbye from me, Russ.
It's goodbye from me, Peter.
And I guess it's goodbye from me as well, Ed.
And it's goodbye from Ed as well.
Well, that was quite simply the worst podcast I have ever had the misfortune to listen to. Somebody will need to be punished, but I can't decide whether to use the thumbscrews on them, on their disgusting hands, or if I should simply throw one of them in the moat.